Good afternoon and welcome to another episode of Unscripted and Unchained RPG Review. I am DM Bloodworth, and as you can see by the graphics, today I'm continuing with day 5 of RPG A Day 2020. And today's prompt is the word tribute. Now, I was debating, with myself several ways that I could go with this particular term, and I decided that I'm going to go with giving tribute to the legacy of our hobby. Now, when I talk about the legacy of our hobby, I'm not just talking about its creators or its writers, its artists, those early DMs and players that got involved in the RPG hobby in its earliest days. I'm talking about what the legacy of what the hobby represented in its time. And that is something that I've seen, in recent, weeks or months get called into question. And unfortunately, it's called into question by the current steward of Dungeons and Dragons in particular, and that's Wizards of the Coast. So what I'm going to do is, and this is as political as my channel has ever gotten, but it's the politics of the hobby, and so whether you agree with my take on this or not, it's not going to change the fact that you can raise up this hobby without tearing down its legacy. And that's my primary argument here. So I'm going to switch over to another screen and show you a petition that I produced about a month ago. So about a month ago, I produced this petition on change.org. All right, so Wizards of the Coast should remove the disclaimer statement on all of its legacy products. It currently now stands at 1,086 signatures. And basically, I start off with Wizards of the Coast recently added a disclaimer on all of its legacy products, including all of the previous games published by TSR Incorporated, declaring that those products were supportive of racial, ethnic, and gender-based prejudice and stereotypes. The exact statement is below, so we, Wizards, recognize that some of the legacy content available on this website does not reflect the values of Dungeons & Dragons franchise today. Some older content may reflect ethnic, racial, and gender prejudice that were commonplace in American society at that time. These depictions were wrong then and are wrong today. This content is presented as it was originally created because to do otherwise would be the same as claiming that these prejudices never existed. Now, before I continue on, some people have hung their hat on the fact that they said, well, they may have. But then this last statement, because to do otherwise would be the same as claiming these prejudices never existed. So they're making more of a statement of fact that they did exist, not that they may exist. So Dungeons & Dragons teaches that diversity is a strength, and we strive to make our D&D products as welcoming and inclusive as possible. This is part of our work that will never end. The point I'm making is that the legacy products of Dungeons and Dragons, in particular, were diverse. They treated diversity as a strength. There was no group of individual that TSR said, we don't want you playing our games. All right, there was no depictions or written material that came out and said, we don't want you playing our games. All right. And so that's where, I really take an issue with this disclaimer is that Wizards of the Coast is speaking as if they are saving Dungeons and Dragons from its legacy, which is ridiculous on its face, in my opinion. This disclaimer, and this is my writing again. This disclaimer makes a statement of fact argument and therefore paints all of the writers, editors, artists, and consumers of these products as supporting those prejudices and stereotypes and bigotry. The statement by Wizards of the Coast opens the possibility for the players of these legacy products to face ridicule and to face the labeling as bigot, racist, misogynist, or worse. It is with this concern in mind that those that sign this petition request that this disclaimer statement be removed. Secondarily, that there should be an apology to the previous employees of the company and the companies that produce these products. Finally, an apology to be made to the legacy consumers and players who have been supporting Dungeons and Dragons franchise for over 40 years. So, as I said, currently at the time of recording this, there's 1,086 signatures to this petition. I'm going to switch views back again. And so the last piece of my tribute is I give tribute to the people who boldly signed that petition. I give tribute to the many of us who are still playing the Dungeons and Dragons or the older legacy games still to this day. There is a huge community that is still dedicated to playing old Dungeons and Dragons or D&D, the basic back in the early 1980s, or BECME, or Advanced Dungeons and Dragons First Edition, Second Edition, 3.5, and so on. Even including Fourth Edition, which was a WotC product that they also put this disclaimer on. So it was everything previous to Fifth Edition. It was every licensed area. All right, so it's not just on Dungeons and Dragons products. It's on all TSR products. So Star Frontiers has this disclaimer. Top Secret has this disclaimer. Although I haven't actually looked at it, I'm pretty sure that Conan the Barbarian will have this disclaimer on it. The point is that they just carte blanche put this across every single product, and that is painting with a broad brush everyone that was involved, whether there be a writer, an artist, an editor, or a player, whether a GM or a player playing these legacy products. We are all painted with that same brush. So I am giving tribute to the legacy of our hobby. Let's not forget that our hobby has always been inclusive. For anybody who lived throughout and played these games throughout the 1980s, all right, we were not the in crowd. We were not the we were the ones that had to deal with the satanic panic and people saying, oh, this is the wrong game to play, or it's going to twist and warp our minds. We all went through that. We carried this hobby through a time when, in many cases, the home computer and the gaming console was exchanging itself in place of tabletop role-playing games, and yet we were still there, still playing, still bringing this forward. All right, so my tribute, once again, is to the legacy of our hobby. Our hobby was inclusive. It was open to, diverse, to diverse people, to diverse ideas. It was an escape from the real world trauma that some people have suffered through. It was just a place where we could all come together and say, we as a gaming group at this table are going to take a break away from everything else going on out there, and we're going to live out our fantasies in this fantasy setting, playing characters very different from ourselves. And that it doesn't get much more inclusive than that. All right, and so I'm gonna leave it there because I want to keep these short. But once again, my tribute is to the legacy of our hobby. And I'm hoping that enough people out there who either played back then or have a appreciation for the hobby back in its earliest days, such as those people involved with the old school Renaissance. OSR might stand for several different meanings, but they're all grounded in the fact that the legacy of this hobby, going back to the 1970s and 1980s, is something that is valued and should be given tribute to for what it has done for all of us sitting here today, still involved in tabletop role-playing games. Thank you for joining. Give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. I'm sure I'll probably get some thumbs downs as well. If you really dispute what I'm saying here, feel free to put it in the comments section, and I'll be happy to debate you, on this particular issue. So once again, thanks for joining, and I'll be back again with something probably a little bit more upkey for later on this afternoon. The next word is forest. I got to figure out how I'm going to use that, but again, thank you for joining. I look forward to seeing you on a gaming screen sometime soon. You'll have a great afternoon.